We've got breaking news, and Captain Harris is coming on shortly to give us more details. But apparently this guy, through a domestic dispute incident, was known to the FBI. It's not the first time we've had terror incident on this soil committed by someone who was in the grasp, or at least in the web, of the FBI.
Yeah, I mean, it was a domestic abuse charge. You know, the thing about this case, this thing demonstrates that it makes a strong argument that we should front-load Iraqi and Afghan translators and cultural advisors that worked with U.S. intel and U.S. special operators to the front of the immigration line to partner with law enforcement and to partner with the Department of Homeland Security to vet these individuals. Nothing more powerful than having an Afghan guy vetted by U.S. intel questioning another Afghan coming back from Afghanistan about what he did there. There would be some indicators there, and I think that would be very valuable.
You know, on that note, Ron, of course, with the presidential election, a lot is focused on immigration policies and the vetting and how we go about vetting. Even Hillary Clinton now voicing a more harsher, vigilant tone on that. But for people who are hearing this notion of self-radicalization, great piece written by the New York City Police Department, a white paper a few years ago that talks about pre-radicalization, self-identification, indoctrination, and then jihadization. That process, when it happens, people who know these folks intimately see the difference. They say, hey, this guy went from being the class clown to being very serious. He grew this beard. He was very quiet. He started to voice anti-American sentiment. How does the average person out there, when they see someone that they've known for a long time with these Islamic roots going back and forth, all of a sudden change? How do they react, and how are they supposed to help with law enforcement to combat this?
Well, we need their help, and they need to pay attention. There are, well-written articles about that path to radicalization. But we need citizens, in addition to our law enforcement.
Let's walk through this. Let's say this is happening right now, that someone at a factory somewhere, their coworker is going through this process right now. Who would they call, and what would the follow-up be? Because, again, it feels like these guys, someone does see something and say something, and at some point it fades away. Maybe it's all about not having enough money, not having enough resources to follow through, but something is going wrong here.
Well, part of this is the FBI guidelines, and part of it is the FBI's resources and law enforcement's resources. Two pieces. One of those, the first, the guidelines. If you have predication to start an investigation on someone and you have just basic information, the guidelines require, unless you can move that forward into a full investigation, it sets a deadline. And at some point, and usually it's a 6-month period, you have to have significant justification to continue or turn that case off. Even were you to keep that case going, you need to have more resources. The FBI is stretched thin. Surveillance resources are very finite. It takes 24 people to watch somebody round the clock. And that's outside of electronic surveillance coverage. So you're talking about a steep climb for an agency that doesn't have the resources.
Mike, real quick, you talked about giving up some of our liberties and freedoms. The American public, I feel, could be edging toward that sort of realization. If possible, what could a new compromise be? Because the current compromise doesn't appear to be working.
Well, look, I mean, again, I think typically when we have something like this, people's minds go towards more security. That doesn't last very long because as a nation, we tend to have ADD. And so, we get frustrated after a while with the security protocols that get put in place. What can be done? Well, Ron pointed out an important part of this. The go-to reaction tends to be after an incident. Well, something went wrong. There was a failure somewhere. Well, the reality of it also is what Ron pointed to, which is the abilities. How do you, what do you have to go through? What hoops do you have to jump through? What are the parameters of opening and then maintaining an investigation? And so that's one thing to be looked at. But you know where that has to be done? That has to be done up on Congress. That's an important conversation to have. But it's got to be done and taken up by Congress, and then there has to be agreement.
Something tells me we're going to have that conversation sooner rather than later. Gentlemen, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.